Director sir, please present a memento to Mr. Lalit Jalan as a token of appreciation from eSummit. We would like to request Director sir to please present a token of appreciation to Mr. Sai Srinivas Kiranji. We would like to request Director sir to please present a memento to Mr. Ray Nival.
अभी नहीं. Let's start. Sorry for the.
In order to succeed, our desire for success should be greater than the fear of failing. This is the vision of eCell. We believe that for India to emerge as the next superpower of the world, the youth have to break the shackles of the orthodox ideas that have kept them from starting up.
We aim to induce an entrepreneurial mindset into the students and aim of innovative streak in them. We are here to convert the sparks of ideas into flames which can light up an unprecedented path and make our future bright.
IIT Kanpur is the alma mater to some of the distinguished entrepreneurs that resulted in startups such as Nutanix, InMobi, Kent, MPI, to name a few. A lot of them have been featured in the Forbes 30 Under 30 and Fortune 40 Under 40 lists. To incite you forward in your entrepreneurial journey, we are here with the biggest entrepreneurial event of the year, eSummit.
eSummit is the flagship event of eCell IIT Kanpur, which brings together all academia, entrepreneurs, investors, mentors, and angel investors. In a nutshell, all those passionate about entrepreneurship to a common platform.
To go wrong in one's own way is better than to go right in someone else's. Being afraid of risk is normal, but refusing to let it stop you from standing up and making a difference, that's a sign of a true maverick. It's time for us to accept our maverick tendencies, to harness our potential, the side of us that wants to accomplish truly great things. It's time to unleash our inner maverick because at the end of the day, it's the mavericks that are changing the world. That's why we present to you eSummit 2019 with the theme Myriad of Mavericks.
With this, we hope that this eSummit is a highly enriching experience for all of you and you embrace the inner entrepreneur in you. So be ready to explore and learn as much as possible in these three days.
Now, I would like to invite Mr. Amit Lohia, an IIT Kanpur alumnus of 1985 batch, MBA from Carnegie Mellon University, for an address to all the budding entrepreneurs. Mr. Amit Lohia is currently the director of the Lohia Group.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Professor Karandikar, for inviting me here. I hope that I can do some justice after the address of Professor Karandikar. And unfortunately, I did not get much time to prepare for the address, so I would like to make it more of an interactive session. And I would like to start by the journey we had as a company, Lohia Corp, in Kanpur. A disclaimer, I did not find this company, it's a family company. So I joined the company when it was already established. We started in 1980s when the regulatory environment was very different from what you people see today. And the economy was very closed. So typically success depended on getting licenses for manufacturing things. That is something which is an alien concept today. We started, like all other companies of our times, with buying technology from European companies and being a manufacturing company. When the economy in India changed in the early 90s, when Mr. Manmohan Singh, whom most of you know as the ex-Prime Minister of India, he was the Finance Minister in 91. He opened up the economy, and that is when all businesses in India had to change. We also changed from being a manufacturing business to being a business driven by R&D and by investing more in both R&D, manufacturing, and also becoming more of an international company. Kanpur is a graveyard for a lot of companies. Kanpur was a thriving city in the 70s and 60s. What we did different, and I hope that some of you can learn from my experience, is to invest in people and invest in technologies. We also did differently that we did not diversify into unrelated areas or take too much debt. As budding entrepreneurs or innovators, though they go hand in hand, the lesson that our experience can give you is not to take debt. You have to be driven by equity, by investments. Your generation is very fortunate of being in an age where both capital is easily available. There is no dearth of capital for ideas. All you have to do is believe in yourself and not be afraid of failure. India still has a mindset where failure in business is frowned upon. As an entrepreneur, the biggest lesson you can take is not to be afraid of failure, but learn from failure. I promised that I would, or indicated that I would make it more of an interactive session. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Anybody? So either you have understood everything I said or understood nothing. I guess I was not very good at explaining things. Okay. I'd like to take your leave now, and thank you very much.
Sir, somebody.
Oh, okay.
A very good afternoon, sir. Sir, when you switch from manufacturing to R&D manufacturing, what challenges you face? In 1991, when you changed from manufacturing to R&D manufacturing company, what challenges you face?
So when I said that we switched from manufacturing to R&D, it was the manufacturing was the core piece, but we started our own R&D instead of buying R&D, buying developed technologies. And that journey happened not in 91, but from mid-90s it took 10 years to transform. The challenges are always having good people. The R&D is a people-intensive process, and finding the right people who have with the right mindset for being able to do development and design was our biggest challenge.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for your presence. Sir, I want to ask you, since the government is encouraging the Indian economy to move towards the manufacturing sector, what all initiatives the government should take in order to make this happen? Thank you.
So, I personally believe that the job of the government is to have the right policies and to build infrastructure. It is a job of the entrepreneurs to invest using those policies and infrastructure, and it is the job of investors to provide the capital. The government is making a lot of right noises about the policies, but we still have a long way to go. The one policy that manufacturing and labor intensive manufacturing requires is the right labor policies. And we in the industry are very happy to see that the government is coming out with completely revamped labor laws, condensing them into 4 labor codes. I think this will go a long way towards encouraging manufacturing. Anybody else?
So, for entrepreneurs who want to move into start something in the manufacturing sector, you said entrepreneurs need to bank on the government policies and investors need to back them up.
Can you please repeat the question? You're not very clear.
So you said that entrepreneurs, those who want to move into manufacturing sector, they should bank on the policies that the government is making, and investors should back them up. So my question is, sir, in today's market scenario where everything is where most of the entrepreneurs move towards the services sector, what thing you would like to suggest or recommend for entrepreneurs to motivate them to move into the manufacturing sector? Because right now most of the entrepreneurs start something in the services sector.
Right. So traditionally, entrepreneurship has been much easier in the services sector. And of course, the biggest example is the complete IT industry, which evolved in India starting the late 90s. It evolved because government stayed out of its way. They really had no policies to encourage or to discourage IT. The transition to manufacturing requires trained, or let's say skilled, manpower in the manufacturing sector. The initiatives that the government has taken about skill development and, like I said, revamping the labor laws is something that will enable more investments into the manufacturing sector. As an entrepreneur, once you can figure out which area of manufacturing to get into, what kind of manufacturing, these two things will come in handy to you. Anybody else? Yeah, okay. Again.
So the follow-up question is that which particular sectors would be you feel would be best in even in manufacturing? Which particular sectors would be best for entrepreneurs to start something in it, seeing the market situation, government policies, and investors' intent to help those entrepreneurs?
That is a question which as traditionally people say is a very good question. When I say it's a very good question, it means I don't have a good answer to it. There is no sector which is right or wrong if you want to get into manufacturing. However, what I will say is that as entrepreneurs, you should focus on manufacturing which have a little bit of technology component to it, rather than simply traditional manufacturing, where you, for example, making garments. That is very traditional and difficult for an entrepreneur to succeed in. Entrepreneurs succeed in finding a niche which has an unmet need. If you do whatever everybody else is doing, that becomes very difficult to succeed in. If you see the services industries, they have grown by finding a niche which was not being served. Was I able to answer your question? Good. Anybody else?
Sir, I'm like a tech student and I'm just 19 years old, and like I'm basically an amateur in this. Like I know nothing about entrepreneurship and everything.
I'm sorry, it's dark at the back. Can you come forward? Yeah, that's better.
Hello sir, I'm a tech student and like it's my first year and I'm just 19 years old and like I have no knowledge about entrepreneurship, and like eSummit is like a new experience for me, and yeah, I do want to know about entrepreneurship. What I wanted to ask, like as an amateur, should I work under an entrepreneur first and gain experience from them, or because then only I would be only limited to tech startups, only tech startups. Shouldn't I be working under an entrepreneur after completing my undergraduation?
So this is a question, this is something you will answer to yourself as you progress through your studies. everybody has a different mental makeup, and some people thrive by starting early without experience and starting companies or businesses. There are others who gain experience by working either in big traditional companies or with startups and then start their own journey.
Sir, how did you start your journey? I'd like to know your experience.
So, like I mentioned, I'm not a founder of my company. It's a family business. My brother started it and I joined it when it was a very young company. I joined it when it was a very young company. As a part of the family, that is something which was expected and I didn't really give it a second thought. So really my journey is not a very appropriate example to follow.
Thank you for answering, sir.
Welcome. Anything? Okay, thank you everybody. I'll be here after the session and we'll be glad to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for gracing the event and sharing your valuable insights with us, and also taking the questions of all the budding entrepreneurs.
Now, I would like the dignitaries on the stage to get off the dais, onto their seats with the audience. Yes. No.
Now, we have with us Mr. Sai Srinivas Kiranji, an IIT Kanpur alumnus of Aerospace Department from 2010 batch. He is the CEO, co-founder of Creotech, which was acquired by Hike Messenger in 2017. After which, he founded and is holding the position of CEO of Mobile Premier League. Let's welcome him with a huge round of applause.
Firstly, thank you so much for that introduction. It's really great to be back, to be honest. I think about 10 years back, I was probably sitting there, and it's good to see the Audi still there. It's like one of the questions I was asking the guy, I think Shubham, who was coming along with me while we were taking a flight and coming back. It was like, dude, is this the same auditorium or is that a new auditorium? And he was telling me that there are 2 new auditoriums now in college. So it's good to see you guys. It's really, really great to, be back and, share this with you. In fact, I have a very interesting story to tell you guys. The eCell, or the organization which is running this event, it was actually started during the time when I was in college, between 2006 to 2010. In fact, I was just texting one of my close friends from college, who was the coordinator back then, saying that, hey dude, I'm going to this event, and he was really happy to know that the eSummit has become so big now. Right, so my journey in IIT was actually quite amazing. I joined aerospace engineering in 2006. I was very, very privileged and fortunate to have met some incredible people in my batch, some of whom actually still work with me. In fact, in my first startup, Creo, my head of design, my head of product, and in fact my head of engineering were all either my batchmates or 1 year junior from IIT Kanpur. In fact, the head of product design at MPL, which is one of India's largest mobile gaming apps, is Rachit, who is also an IIT Kanpur alumnus. That actually brings me to the first most amazing thing about this place, is that you will probably never have this privilege again in your life that in 4 years you get to meet so many amazing people around you, whom you could probably learn so much from, and in fact, who knows, start a lot of companies in the future. I think that kind of privilege is very, 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 very underrated, in fact, in an institute like this. The second thing which I learned in college, especially those 4 years, was that I was reasonably early in my tenure in Kanpur. I was reasonably sure that I wanted to do something in the field of internet. So we used to work a lot out of our hostel rooms, and then we did a lot of random products. Some of them made sense, some of them were outright stupid. But the fact that we spent a lot of time experimenting was very, very useful. In fact, I'm very thankful that we even had some space in SIDBI back then where we could actually sit and work out of these things. It was because of that tinkering and that experimentation that actually led us to start our first company. And in fact, we started our first company in manufacturing. It was a hardware company. And when a lot of people would have told me it was probably the most stupid thing to do, why did we start a hardware company? But the fact that we were able to start that hardware company and sell about 75,000 odd units of that device taught us a lot. But anyhow, coming back to the journey in Kanpur, the 4 years. So most of the time in Kanpur, I think the best thing that happened to me was that I was intrinsically not very good in acads. So I was not the most academically gifted human being. So that automatically made me explore a whole bunch of other things, especially in the internet domain. And I ended up becoming a product manager right after college. In fact, in my batch, I was probably the only product manager then. And back then, being a product manager in an internet company was not a job that most people from campus would take. And just like Mr. Lohia was just saying a few minutes back, it was for me, it was a bit of I was lucky that I ended up choosing a career path which was very unique and which was not something that a lot of other people chose. And honestly, a lot of that was just because of luck, because of which I learned more about product development, and that's the reason why we're building this product. But I think if I were to give you guys 3 key things that you should look at, what's changed between when I was in college and now is, first of all, the cost of starting up is extremely cheap now. It's like supremely cheap. Like, you guys have fabulous internet in your rooms, I'm sure about that. We had insane internet when we were there in college, so I think it's only gotten better now. The second thing is the cost of everything you need to start up, right from hosting to building an app to hosting an app, and to even getting it out to customers is actually supremely cheap now than it was 10 years back. Even if you have like 5 lakh rupees or 4 lakh rupees or even 2 lakh rupees, and honestly getting that kind of capital is very easy. Like, you just have to make few calls to any of your alumnus, and most people would be more than happy to back you guys. To make that app and put it out into the market is extremely cheap. So the excuse for not starting up while, as a project or as a hobby while you're in college is actually not there. Back in the day, there weren't any smartphones, there weren't easy ways to get to people, so it was much harder to build something, but now it's supremely easy. So first is that. The second thing that I'd like to tell you, the second thing that I learned 4 or 5 years after getting out of college is, one other thing that being in an IIT gives you is that the last thing you need to worry about when you get out of this college is a job. Because I'm certain that all of you are smart enough and capable enough that you will eventually get good jobs wherever you go. So for you guys, honestly, if you don't try to experiment while you're in college and try to experiment with various different things, be it internet products, be it manufacturing, be it in the respective departments that you're in, I think it would be a big waste of your time, 4 years that you spend here, because you have nothing to lose, honestly. you only have everything to gain, and you'll only get enriched by that experience. And worst case, क्या होने वाला है? Fail होने वाले हो एक दो बार बस. But it's better to fail early than to fail later on in your life, right? So honestly, I think for you guys, it's much better that you start something early, and that's my key takeaway from what I see happening now and what I see happening 10 years back. In fact, if you look at some of the most amazing startups like ShareChat, another startup called OK Credit, etc., all of these are IIT Kanpur startups. And for all you guys who you need support for or you need help, I think there are all these guys right there to answer your questions. So with that, I'd probably stop talking, but I'd be very happy to answer any specific questions that you guys have that you would want to know about either starting up, either failing, or what's, anything else that you'd want to talk about.
Hello, sir. Sir, my question is, when is the perfect time to start a startup of our own?
Right. See, honestly, there's nothing like a perfect time to start a startup, right? There's nothing. Firstly, don't wait for perfection. I think one of the things that people make a big mistake about is कि इसका perfect time क्या है, उसका perfect time क्या है. Honestly, किसी चीज़ का कोई perfect time नहीं होता है, right? The key thing that we always, especially what I learned amongst engineers, is that we are taught very, very well how to find a solution for something. But entrepreneurship is all about finding the problem. If you find the right problem, you guys are smart enough to find the solution. So, and the problem with IIT and problem with all my peers who are in the the community of Bangalore or Mumbai is that most of us have been extremely good at finding solutions, but there are very few of us who actually find great problems. So I'd actually tell you the right time to start up is the day you discover a really, really great problem. And I would honestly, tell you to spend as much time reading about stuff or looking out to see what is the problem that you would want to solve. And when you find that problem, I think you should start up.
And sir, I have one more question.
Sure.
So what should we prefer while starting a startup? Should we prefer investments, risks, or the profit that we would be generating?
I'm again telling you, the only thing you need to start up is a problem. You need a really, really good problem, right? Think of all the best startups or all the greatest companies that have been in India or for that matter in the world, right? They've all found a problem that no one else found, right? If you find the right problem, money will come to you, people will come to you. The solution will by default come to you because, dude, by the very fact that you're in this institute, I'm sure you have IQ good enough to solve any problem. So find the problem, spend more time in trying to find the problem.
And sir, one more thing. So is copying a startup and making it better a good idea? Like we could copy Facebook, Amazon, Zomato and Apple and bring together all that in one place, under one roof. Is that a better idea?
Again, if you ask yourself, are you solving a problem? You'll have the answer to that. Because Facebook's already solved a problem, Zomato has already solved a problem. So if you, by combining all of it, are you actually solving a problem? If you are, then probably it's a good idea. But
sir, I guess people need new Facebook because they are bored and it has been run for 15 years.
Yes. That's the reason that I think it's time you move to Snapchat.
But Snapchat has been a big...
Anyways. But yeah, I think we'll have a chat after this and I'll answer your questions in much more detail. But the key point is just search for the problem, man. Like just go out and look for a problem.
Snapchat has been a big disappointment in US market. I have read that.
Okay, fair enough. Then I'll find you another social network, I promise.
I will create my own then.
Yes, very good. Do that.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Over here.
Anybody else has a question or?
Hello, sir. Analyzing the market is also important. So,
I can't hear you.
Before starting any startup, analyzing the market is also important. So, how can we approach that? Like, I am thinking of something, and my target is students, engineering students of private colleges. So, how can I analyze the market before starting anything?
That's a great question, actually. that's the second thing. See, market is like, so finding a problem is the first step, but the second thing is the market ready to pay for it, right? And usually what you'll realize is that markets are like rivers, right? If a market is in your favor, it's very easy to row and it's very easy to build a business. But if the market's not in your favor, it's like rowing upstream. It's very, very hard. See, the only way to identify whether there's a market or not is to ideally make a prototype, some format of a low fidelity prototype, and try to sell to customers, right? If people are ready to pay you money, especially in India, right? If people are ready to pay you money, then there's no bigger validation you need, right? Because everybody's got time. So don't measure it on the amount of time that people are spending on your product, but if people are ready to pay you money, even in a closed group of, say, a sample set of 100, if people are ready to pay you money, I think that's a really good place to start with, right? So validating market can only happen if you have comps, as in if you have a comparison. Like for example, let's for a second assume that you're making a testing software, right? You're making a test prep software. If you have comparisons, as in there are other apps or other companies who are already selling testing software, and if your testing software is also catering to a similar need but does a better job, then you can say that the market is already there. But if you're building something brand new, then you're always better served by going and actually selling to a few customers upfront, because when you sell to them, you'll know ki, you know, kitna pani hai aur kitna doodh hai, pata chal jata hai.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. My question to you, sir, if I am starting a startup that fails, then what should my mindset be at that time? Should I drop that idea, or what should I think, what procedure I should follow to make that idea successful, or should I move to another idea or something else?
Right.
Yes, sir. And next question, and I have done some startup works. So one problem I saw, that a mismanagement. If I am sharing, I am doing something with my friend, and I made that this is the idea, we want to do it. So he is agree. But as we proceed to the doing things, then he doesn't take interest. It's like a mismanagement thing. So how to deal the things when it's not going that way? We say that mismanagement. How to deal with mismanagement?
Okay, I did not understand your second question, but I did understand your first question. So let me first answer the first question. Are you in your first year?
No. I'm an MTech student.
You're an MTech student. In your life till now, in your school or in your college, have you ever failed?
Yes, sir.
You failed?
Yes.
What did you do?
So I thought, what is the reason for failure? Then I worked on the weak portion.
Exactly. And you went back, did the course again, and probably did a better job. Startups are no different, man, right? My first company, we sold it, but honestly, it was not a success, right? It was okay, it was good, but it was not the greatest of success, right? The key thing is to realize and understand that all the people who are here, I mean, all the other entrepreneurs whom you'll talk to over the course of the next 2 days, if you ask them, I think every single one of them would have failed. Every single one of them would have failed, and in fact, successful entrepreneurs fail more than the other ones. It's just that they just learn faster. So you just have to stop, like punishing yourself for failure. You just have to chill. It happens. Move on and go solve the next problem. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
As we are running short of time, so we will be taking just one more question. That's it, and more questions will be taken after the session.
Hello. Hello, sir. Sir, what precaution we have to take? Sir, what precaution we have to take to before startup? Sir, क्योंकि success chances तो काफ़ी कम होते, तो हम लोग को क्या precautions लेनी चाहिए startup से पहले करने?
अच्छा, वो like it's a good question, but honestly, आपसे मैं एक ही सवाल पूछता हूँ. जैसे IIT में आने के भी काफ़ी कम चांसेस होते हैं. क्या precautions लिए थे आप?
सर मैं नहीं IIT का नहीं हूँ सर मैं.
अच्छा, IIT का नहीं हो आप, ठीक है. बट इंजीनियरिंग जो भी जहाँ पे भी कर रहे हो, हर चीज़ करने के यू जस्ट नीड टू एंश्योर दैट अपना रोटी कपड़ा मकान सॉर्टेड है.
यस सर. यस सर.
हाँ, रोटी कपड़ा मकान अगर सॉर्टेड है तो यार उसके अलावा आपको क्या चाहिए? or internet. Roti, kapda, makan or internet, right? That's the four.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Cool. I guess that's about it, right? Thank you so much, guys. It's really incredible to come back and talk to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable and interesting insights on entrepreneurship with us and taking the audience questions.
Our chief guest for the day and our next keynote speaker is Mr. Lalit Jalan. Mr. Lalit Jalan is a visionary and hands-on business leader who has successfully led various businesses such as plastics, e-business, power and infrastructure. Mr. Lalit Jalan recently superannuated as Chief Executive Officer of Reliance Infrastructure Limited and Group Director of Reliance Group, which has diverse business interests across finance, infrastructure, power, telecom, healthcare, defense, and entertainment sectors. An alumnus of IIT Kanpur, Mr. Jalan graduated in 1979 and followed it up with an MBA in finance from Wharton School and Masters in computer science from University of Pennsylvania in 1982. He was consistently in top 1% of his class and was in the Director's Honors and Dean's List at Wharton. He was awarded the Distinguished Alumni Award by IIT Kanpur 2004, selected for IIT-K at 50, at IIT Kanpur 2010, and showcased as one of IIT System's top 15 achievers at the first Pan IIT Meet in California in 2003. Mr. Jalan joined Reliance Industries in 1995 as the group's youngest ever CEO and served in many critical leadership positions across the group. After the acquisition of Mumbai Power Business, Mr. Jalan was appointed CEO of erstwhile BSES in a decade's time. Mr. Jalan successfully steered the transformation of BSES into Reliance Infrastructure Limited with leading presence across power, roads, metro, airports, EPC, and cement. He is also credited with the phenomenal turnaround of Delhi distribution business into a world-class utility post its privatization in 2002, thereby leading to savings of over Rs 80,000 crores for the exchequer. A born entrepreneur with immense passion for technology, Mr. Jalan strongly believes in leading through empowerment. An avid sportsman, he represented college in cricket, bridge, and swimming. With his vast and rich experience, Mr. Jalan is one of the most respected professionals in the power and infrastructure sectors in India. Post-superannuation, Mr. Jalan continues to provide his invaluable guidance as an advisor to the group as well as chairman of Delhi distribution business. So, ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for welcoming Mr. Lalit Jalan on stage.
A very good evening, fellow students, and it's a privilege to be invited to speak at this event. I graduated in 1979, 40 years back, and we are all excited like young kids to come back to campus in December for our 40th reunion, which is middle December. When we were in college, there was no internet, there was no mobile systems, there was no startup culture, There was no Startup India, there was no VC funds, there were no angel funds. So it was pretty much of a straight-jacketed life. People went either for teaching or research or jobs. So I made some slides. I don't know whether it's there. Yeah. So the slides are just in the background, and so Dr. Amitabh told me that I should share my very, very unorthodox background with all of you, and maybe I hope it will add some value and some experience. I have just, as a starting slide, I'm just saying that who is an entrepreneur? Is a doctor, is a lawyer, is a chartered accountant, is he an entrepreneur? He may be, but he may be not. Can the following be entrepreneurs? Singer, writer, painter? Again, the answer is both. They can be entrepreneurs, they need not be entrepreneurs. Is an IIT graduate an entrepreneur? Maybe, maybe not. So an entrepreneur is one, as my previous speaker mentioned, is somebody who looks at a problem, finds opportunities, finds resources, puts them all together, and hopefully the concoction works. I thought I'll just spend some time with what I did and why I did. It is not, when I look back now, 40 years after IIT, that I can say that everything was pre-planned and I knew what I wanted to do. A lot of things happen by chance, a lot of things happens by destiny, there's a lot of luck. Post my, I did electrical engineering in IIT, that was a 5-year course. I really wanted to do business. I had to go to a business school. I didn't want to really pursue hardcore engineering. And I was very, very keen to go to US. There were very, very fine schools, IIMs and all that, which I got admitted to. But I wanted to go to US for the experience, the culture that we have of interacting with industry and to be able to see the world. And I wanted to be in a top 5 business school, and I also wanted a scholarship. So it was a pretty difficult combination, because getting into an MBA school without experience is very difficult, and asking for money is impossible. But luckily that time UPenn was offering this joint program between engineering and MBA, and I was fortunate enough, they agreed to fund the entire joint program. After finishing, I took up a job with General Electric company. They had a great program for MBAs. I got a green card, which was very coveted then also, and I worked there for about 2 years. But in my mind, I was very, very clear that I wanted to go back home and I wanted to start my own business. Not that I had a business to go back to, while I did come from a business family, but it was a very small business and there were too many family members involved, so there was no work for me. So I left my job at General Electric and I moved back to Calcutta, where my family stayed, with no idea, no problem, nothing in mind, just with the desire that I want to be my own boss and do my own business. So that was the and all my friends that time who were at US, they thought I'd gone cuckoo and they thought I'd gone mad, who could chuck up a job and just go without even having anything. Luckily, I was able to find some businesses. I could raise capital, and I must have looked at 50 different business startups. Of course, not the E did not exist then, so it was hardcore businesses. Even a kirana shop is a startup, even a trader is a startup, even a manufacturing small company is a startup. So anything which doesn't exist, you're not working for somebody, you've created something on your own. So I started a distribution company, and we started with selling televisions that time, and television that just been launched in India in 1982, the color televisions, and so I became a distributor for one of the leading brands. And then that business I grew across multiple product segments and geographies and brands. So whether it was televisions, whether it was air conditioners, whether it was home appliances, whether it was watches, whether it was... So there was a whole lot of things which I tried my hand on, some unsuccessfully, some successfully, industrial products. So it became a big distribution house. And I was very happy doing what I was doing. In fact, I must recount one experience of mine. Mobile business was just being launched. 95 was the first mobile phone launched. That time, for all of you, many of you would not be born that time, government had given licenses to two operators in just the 4 metro cities. So Calcutta, Bombay, Delhi and Madras. And there were two operators. And in Calcutta, where I was, there was this company called Modi Telstra, with an Australian company called Telstra. And Telstra was a very big operator in Australia and very, very big. So the entire show was being run by Telstra in India. And they decided to make me as their sole distributor for trade business in Calcutta. And that time, the phones used to be, I mean, the basic phone used to cost 50,000-60,000 rupees. There was nothing called a smartphone. There was no internet. There was no mobile internet. And there was a concept called airtime. That time, 4 hours during the day, you could charge 16 rupees 80 paisa per minute. And then another 4 hours, you could charge 8 rupees 40 paisa. And balance 16 hours, you had to charge 4 rupees 20 paisa. And the ARPUs used to be in the range of 4,000 rupees per customer. And the companies, and we would sit down and debate as to how we can work with government to allow us to charge the peak airtime for more than 4 hours. So the first mobile phone happened to be launched in Calcutta, and it was launched in Hotel Taj, and that time the then CM Jyoti Basu made the call to Telecom Minister Sukhram, and I was part of that event. So it was very heartwarming that, I was part of a very new industry. So 12 years I did that, and then there was this fate, a chance, an electric shock to me in some ways. I had, Mr. Ambani was also studying at Wharton while I was there, so we had made good friends. And when I would come for my business in Bombay, we would meet for tea or coffee or a meal. So we were in touch, and they were a large conglomerate then, back in 95, and they were starting up a business, and they wanted a complete ground zero, de novo thinking, rather than give it to their existing team of people, processes, systems, and technology, what you have. So I was approached by Mr. Ambani, and he told me to work with Reliance, and I was aghast. I said, there's no way, because I don't want to work for somebody. I am my own entrepreneur. But of course, they are very, very persuasive, and he explained to me that I would be an entrepreneur with the balance sheet of Reliance and all the skills and processes. So here I was. I moved, and they gave me, they made me the CEO then of the polypropylene business, a business which they had just started the factory. I mean, the factory was under construction. And they wanted a team completely different, not from the industry, which would work with new systems, new processes, new everything. So here I was, So here I was having no idea about the industry, about the product, about the markets, or about even how to work in a very, very large company like Reliance, and that too as the CEO. There was no guide. I mean, you were literally on your own, swimming in the deep end. And so the industry was very balanced, there was not much scope, and we were putting up a very, very large plant which was twice the capacity of the total demand in India at that time. But things worked and we could build the systems, we met the customers, we got the product slate right, we got the distributors, we set up the IT systems, backbone systems, logistics systems. And as the product started flowing into the market, the ethos of supply creates demand, because in a starved market, the market was growing barely 10% a year. But the moment the product became easily available and could be available within 7 days of your ordering at your factory, the demand went to 40%. So we could place a lot of those products in India, and the surplus product we opened the export markets that time. My own business that time, since I was moving and I didn't have any family member to look after, I handed to my team which I had built. The team ran very well without me, and they grew the business. And now in 2010 my son came back from US and he's also running that business. From there I headed other verticals like telecom and e-business, and Reliance had just acquired a company called BSES, which was the electricity distribution company in Bombay, and they had just won the rights to distribute in Delhi. So it was a total legacy business with no systems, it is a monopoly, it's still a monopoly, but there was disdain for consumers, there was just supply to be given, very run by unions, and there was a lot of corruption, malpractices. So we said that fine, we know we are a monopoly, but we want to benchmark ourselves with the world's best service providers. So in our benchmarking exercises, we would look at what the best telecom companies do, what the best credit card companies do, what the best hotels do, and we said, if they are giving a service X, a service level X, we have to surpass that. We have to give more features. And so that was the ethos by which we built this whole team. We got a lot of MBAs and other people into the team to give that thing, the culture. Customer care became very, very big focus for us. From utility, then we went to the infrastructure sector, opened up that time, the build, own, transfer scheme that many of you all might have heard. And we used that time to build the roads business, the metro business. So we have a very large road portfolio now, which has marquee roads like the Delhi-Agra main highway, the Pune-Satara main highway. So those roads were built. The only metro running in Bombay, which is the Versova-Ghatkopar line, was built by us and is being still operated by us and being run very, very efficiently at 100% on-time performance. I have just superannuated from my executive role as a CEO after spending 25 years across multiple roles at Reliance. And so while I keep on advising the company in terms of strategic initiatives, but now I am free to do what I could do, because the time when I was at Reliance was very, very intense and there was no time to think any other way. So I've got involved in certain startups, both in the e-space as well as the physical space. I'll just share a very interesting concept which will give you a very different idea of how a startup can work. So on the consumer distribution space, in which I had good experience, there was nobody across India who was a national distributor. So at best people would be state distributors, or there could be 2 state distributors. Nobody was a pan-India footprint. The large companies, the Sonys, the Samsungs, the Nokias, many of these companies you would take up and you build the company, you build the brand, you give them a leading market share, and the company could then turn around owing to management change, philosophy change, they could cut you down. So from a state-wise distributor, they could make 5 distributors in a state. And I would say that, you know, like there were some people who came from FMCG concept where they would say that even in a city like Calcutta, there should be 4 distributors. So literally, you know, your destiny was not in your hands fully. So while you were building great value for the company, you were not assured of a permanent livelihood and a growth livelihood with these companies. So the thought was there that is there some way in which we can aggregate these very large distributors together and build a team which can then source products from either India or from China or wherever, products which we feel, the distributors feel, because they have the pulse of the market, what kind of products and things that are required by the trade and by the people, and create a brand of our own. And you have then the permanent distribution of the state. So this concept as now is real. A company has been formed by the name of OVOT with one vision, one team, and we have launched our own brand called Amstrad. It's very, very young. It's less than 6 months old, and the biggest people across each state is a partner, and they've all co-invested. So if a person is doing Maharashtra, he would invest say 7-8% in the equity of the company. So you have 2 sources of income. One, you have a confirmed distribution from your business, because nobody will change you, because you're the owner of the brand and the owner of the business, and that's a contract. And 2, if the company does well, after 3-4 years, hopefully the valuation of that could be very, very significant. So if I sum up, I've been an entrepreneur, moving to an intrapreneur, and now again coming back to be an entrepreneur. Clearly, you have to take risk. You have to get away from the comfort of stability. You have to get away from the comfort of a regular paycheck. Believe me, it's very, very difficult if you're working, if you're getting a weekly paycheck or a monthly paycheck, and your family is there and everybody is being taken care of, to leave all that and go into a risky world. While the rewards may be very handsome, but there is risk, and you don't know where the next meal might come from. On one hand, you are your own boss, but on the other hand, you have to play all the roles. You are also the peon, you are the accountant, you are the marketing guy, you are the product manager, you are everybody, because you have got very small budgets. What do? It's a very unstructured environment, so it is not easy. People are not always comfortable, and you need a lot of patience, perseverance, and persistence to stay on, because many times you feel that, have I climbed the wrong tree? What am I doing here? Relationships matter a lot. So you got to create a level of trust. People should feel very comfortable that they are working with you. But in the end, I will tell you, the benefit of the pleasure of creating something new, and that something new need not be a Flipkart or an Amazon, is very, very amazing. It may not give you billions of dollars, but it's a very, very satisfying experience. I will just close with the famous slides. Stay hungry, stay foolish, willing to learn from everybody, from who I feel is one of the greatest entrepreneurs that we have seen. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and I'll happy to take as many questions as time would permit.
Hello. So good evening. I am not from IIT, and I am also not an engineer. Just wanted to know, I have started a small startup. It's called Trust Me Cabs. It's similar to Ola, but not exactly Ola. But the problem what we are facing is how and where to find these investors.
So you are at the angel stage?
We've just started. We've been doing it from last 7-8 months. There are revenues coming in, but we need more money.
Yeah, no, this is a very good question, and I was speaking to Dr. Bandapadhyay in the afternoon that there is over years a very deep startup funding system has come up, but they are mostly structured around the large cities like Bangalore, Bombay, Delhi, and so there are these lots and lots of angel investors and funds which look for such opportunities. Of course, it's not very easy because they get hundreds and thousands of ideas through which they hear through, and they meet the team and they have to take a call as to which company. So you should make a little brief, you should have a presentation, and there is no easy way out. You have to go and approach various angel investors, unless you can raise money from friends and relatives and all that in the initial stage. Well, that always helps, or from alumni or wherever. But if you go into the corporate side, then those guys are there with lots and lots of money, but the ideas, and I don't know, means you'll know better, maybe 1 out of 50 ideas get funded, or the ratio is pretty steep. It's like getting into IIT.
Sir, just wanted to interrupt. Are there any forums or anything wherein we can find these kind of people or companies who fund these kind of ideas? Because we are in a C-grade city and very limited corporates available here. That is one. Secondly, I was also trying to go for this crowdfunding platform. And does it help, or people will support?
No, there is a very deep infrastructure system which exists. I am not the right person. I do not know. I have not gone that route. But clearly, I can try and find out and get back to you. There are associations and there are events around which and there are these places where you can go and pitch your ideas. But clearly, those ideas are in these main cities itself.
Thank you so much, sir.
So my question is again on the similar lines with what I asked to Lohia, sir. You started a distribution company. So in these days, whether it is manufacturing company or a distribution based company, both are, I feel, capital intensive, and most of the investors that are again based on metropolitan cities are keen and focused on investing in tech based startups rather than on investing in distribution or manufacturing based new companies. So my question is, sir, how to identify which products or which sectors again in the distribution side would be worth going, because it would require some investment and investors might not be keen on investing on it.
I'm not sure whether I've understood your question. So you want to be in the distribution area, is what you're saying?
Yes, how to identify that what would be the right products you enter into the distribution area?
See, there are new products which are coming in to the market on a regular basis. So that's clearly, many of those product ideas need distributors to go. But as a distributor, you need to create a very, very large infrastructure, because you need to have your sales team, you need to have your logistics team, you need money, because the companies look for you to buy in cash and sell in credit. So it's that way. It's a little more difficult startup, because you need all those. You can't be a single person who says, I want an idea and tomorrow I'll do something. But you have to look at new products, new opportunities, or if you feel that there is something which you can do much better than existing people, you got to sell to the company that you can become their distributor. They must feel that you bring value, and they'll gain by associating with you. Did I answer your question?
So, I have a question. So, if I am already having an idea, but when I will make it, I will proceed in it, other companies which are already working in that field, won't that copy my idea? Before my idea to become more popular among the people, won't the company which are already successful, they will copy my idea before?
Certain things are patentable, certain ideas are patentable. So you should explore that, and many times, so say like the e-marketplace, when it was a nascent idea, I mean, I don't think anybody patented it, but there were multiple people who were addressing that marketplace. But eventually then they all clubbed around, and only the people who could raise money and who could get more customers, who could increase turnover, they could get the next round of funding. And so now the number of people who are there are either niche players who are doing a particular niche product, or they have become the large people like the Amazon and Flipkart. So if it's very difficult today to start up e-marketplace and compete with these people, but if you can find a niche product which these companies will not go after, and there are lots and lots of examples. I may not be able to give you all the answers. There are many companies which offer these niche solutions where, like somebody told me that the best delicacies from across India, the guy can procure for you. So imagine you're sitting here and you want something of Kerala or something of Gujarat and something famous, and they get for you, and they've worked a system where they've tied up with these people, and they have the logistics, and they're delivering a need. But then again, the idea is, how do you get the customers onto your platform? Initially it starts with word to mouth, and which is a very powerful thing. And if you start providing service, people flock to it, and then you can get the funding and you can grow.
Good evening, sir. In your long journey from employee to entrepreneur to entrepreneur to entrepreneur, how you learn to manage risk or risk management?
Risk management across the whole thing?
Yes, sir.
It's many things happened. I would say the first part of my journey was hardwired in my mind, and I cannot give you a good answer to it as to why I would leave a very good job in US and want to come back to Calcutta, and in a very licensed quota permit Raj system where startups were not looked at all. So that was hardwired. It was a calling in my mind which I cannot explain, but I wanted to be. After that, the second part was completely unplanned for. My move into industry, into a very large corporate, and after now completing, clearly I don't see myself retiring. So I see myself, doing more of what I did in my initial years, now with very little hair and grey hair, and with a lot of experience and contacts and relationships. So I can think and maybe use that experience for the good of some startups or where I am involved in or whatever.
So we will be taking just one more question. This will be the ending. Okay.
Hello, sir. What is the exact difference between entrepreneurship and starting up?
I think both are same. I mean, I don't know if there's a technical definition which is different. A startup person is an entrepreneur. I mean, rather than being a professional, like, you know, or a doctor or a chartered accountant, or there also, once you have your own practice, in effect you have become an entrepreneur. You can either be doing a job in a large hospital on a salary, or you could open your own clinic, which is riskier. So as an entrepreneur, whether you open even a restaurant today, it's a very, very competitive marketplace. So for you to be able to feel that yes, there is a need for this kind of a cuisine or a restaurant or this in this market, and you feel and you think you have the ability to bring together the experience and the cooks and the menu, and so if you see, these have all become very next level of thinking. So you are a startup and you are an entrepreneur, both.
Thank you, sir.
So, I have just one last question. I feel like there are two types of business ideas that one can have. One is the problem solving, and the second can be the type of business where which is only meant for elites, like Da Milano or Sabyasachi probably.
Sorry, which is the second part?
Sabyasachi?
Sabyasachi?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you have that, I guess, innate design capability and that ability. I mean, he's an amazing artist. I've seen many of his outfits, and they cost some arm and a leg. It's like you can buy a car at the same price. But he's created those products which become so wanted that the super rich then want to buy it.
So, sir, my question was, for a person who is new to this, what kind of a business idea would be suitable for that? Like, what should the person target? What kind of market should the person target for? The general, which solves the problem and makes their lives better, or who wants to kind of get instant money for some reason and target the elite people?
No, see, I don't think Sabyasachi would have happened by accident. I don't know his whole history. But it would have been a very, very big struggle for him, you know, to create a name and a brand name. Would have taken him, he might have lost money for years, and to get those karigars and to create those designs and to find an outlet, because it's one thing that I create a design, how do I reach you? And these things, these outfits, they sell with experience, means you must have that, it must be in those showrooms, and the showroom will keep you unless you are a brand. So it's a lot of struggle. And I don't think there is a cookie cutter solution. Unlike, you know, we see a math problem and we know that this is one way we can do, or this is one way we can do, and there are set methods and ways by which we solve problems. Here you are trying to either do something better than what somebody is already doing. You are trying to look at a problem and finding a solution to it. Like a very basic example, like opening a restaurant, is not that there aren't enough restaurants in Delhi or Bombay or Kanpur or wherever, but you're trying to find a need, a niche, or need not be, you can even open a South Indian restaurant, and but you got to make it successful. The customer must feel that he's getting value by coming to your place.
So we have to plan according to that.
Yeah, you have to go through the there is no, I just heard this slogan that there's no elevator to success, you got to take the stairs. Okay. And I'll tell you one more thing, being in a large conglomerate for many years, and one question which is there in many of you's mind is, like, let's say you're graduating and you have your placement and everything, and you don't want to miss that. And if you go for a startup, and if your startup fails, say you try very hard and 2 years later you find the idea didn't work, or the market didn't exist, or what you thought people will be, whatever the reason, and you want to come back into the mainstream, and you say, fine, I've had enough and I want to get into the job market again. As a recruiter myself, if I look at two resumes which are very similar, but somebody has a 2 years experience, maybe failed experience as an entrepreneur, that he or she gets higher marks, because you know that they've gone through the grind, they've done everything, rather than somebody who has worked in one steady job for 2 years. I'm talking very similar background. So you say, okay, fine, he has had the entrepreneurial ability, he's done everything, he knows all pieces of the business.
So failures are important for betterment.
Sorry?
Failures are important for betterment.
I didn't get you.
Failures are important for betterment.
Yeah. Failures are very, people look at it very positively. And I don't think you'll find people who have had success throughout. Very few people. It looks very easy from outside. You look at a Virat Kohli or somebody and you say, wow, I wish I could play like that. But you see the kind of effort that goes in, and then also 1 out of 130 crore people can make that.
Thank you, sir.
More questions will be taken after the session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable insights on. And now I would like to call upon Saksham Mittal, the overall coordinator of Entrepreneurship Cell, IIT Kanpur, to present our chief guest at moment of token as a moment of gratitude and respect, sir.
Now, I would like to invite our keynote speaker, Mr. Sai Srinivas, on stage to present him with our token of respect and gratitude. Thank you, sir.
That was an interesting and interactive session of keynote speeches. And now, before us, the last and most awaited session, a panel discussion which we call the Fireside with the Founder.
For that, we have with us Mr. Vivek Prakash, an IIT Roorkee alumnus and co-founder and CTO at HackerEarth, which aims to build a completely meritocratic system and uses an objective measure to evaluate a developer's technical skill. He has also been a part of Google's Summer of Code program and headed the Information Management Group at IIT Roorkee.
And on the other hand, we have Mr. Ray Neval, who is the Managing Director of Techstars India. Over 20 years as a growth and operations business leader, Ray has established a track record of success in identifying, shaping, and executing the technology-led business concepts across the globe. We would like these two guests onto the dais. Now we have with us Mr. Ray Neval, who is the Managing Director of Techstars India. Over 20 years as a growth and operations business leader, Ray has established a track record of success in identifying, shaping, and executing technology-led business concepts across the globe. Now I would like to invite Ray Neval sir onto the stage.
Moderating this session, we have Ms. Rishita Shah. She has been a Femina cover model and Veed Diva 2014. She has experience of hosting a diverse spectrum of shows as anchor and MC. Without any further ado, over to you, ma'am.
Such is the honor today that I get to share space with respectable professors, amazing entrepreneurs, and I'm not going to say students, I'm going to say future entrepreneurs. So I believe a lot of you sitting over here are going to be future entrepreneurs, and we're going to start the panel with Mr. Vivek Prakash and Mr. Ray. Sound, can I please have a mic that... Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Let's hear it for the gentleman over here. Round of applause, please. You're all young. This is the eSummit 2019. I want to feel some energy in the air. Thank you. Okay, so I have some very interesting questions. I know the next 3 days are going to be all about entrepreneurship, technology, sharing ideas, sharing concepts, sharing all your design thinking, brainstorming efforts. So I know it's going to be really exciting, but right now is the time to learn from some experience that these guys have. And we want to try and understand that when you guys started off as entrepreneurs, what was the inspiration? What clicked in you that told you that this is the time we should now begin? It's time to start something new. It's time to add value. What brought that?
Sure. So my name's Ray. I grew up in Toronto, and my first time coming to India was in 2010. And you know, I always wanted to build a startup, but I didn't do it until after I had spent 10 years in corporate. So I was early employee at DoubleClick, which became Google, early at MSN, and then Yahoo. I was vice president, and completely bored, and wanted to have an impact, and wanted to, you know, go out and be my own boss, as they say. And I had always toyed with the idea of going out and doing a startup and found certain problems that were just way beyond me to solve. And I think after 10 years, I felt, okay, now's the time. I really need to embark on this journey at this point. I wanted an adventure. And for me, you know, I wanted a big problem. It couldn't be small. It had to be massive. And I had, in 2007, when I left Yahoo, the internet was only 1 billion people. And I wanted to bring the next billion online. I know we hear it a lot, the next billion. I wanted to bring the next billion online. And I thought the next billion, you know, so in 2007, when I left Yahoo, it was just, you know, a couple of years before that, YouTube got bought by Google. I was doing a lot of video stuff for Yahoo. And I was like, you know, the next billion people are going to probably come online for a very different reason than the first billion. And I thought they'd come online, A, on feature phones, and B, for the type of content they'd been starved of. And so that, to me, was video content. And I went out, and I'm not a coder, I'm a business guy, but I can acquire companies. I do deals, that's my thing. And I went and I acquired a company, restructured the debt of the company, and built a whole vision around the company to take them to emerging markets and use their platform to bring a lot of great content to people who couldn't get it otherwise. And so that's what brought me to India in 2010. But that, yeah, I wanted to solve a massive problem. That was a big thing for me.
That's very amazing, and you're very right that the next billion internet had reached India, I think, but it had not seeped into the rural parts or the deeper India, the real India. And I think they came to internet for a very different reason, and the value they bring and the kind of content we can give them is going to be very different than the first users. You tell me a little about yourself and what clicked in you.
Yeah, so hey everyone, I'm Vivek and I'm co-founder of a company, Hacker Earth. I want to give a very brief introduction of that, but I want to ask from you guys, how many of you have ever written code in your life? Maybe a raise of hands. Okay. Now out of probably those who raised your hands, how many of you have heard of Hacker Earth? Or you used Hacker Earth? Okay, that's pretty encouraging. So I started Hacker Earth, just after college. Didn't work anywhere. I had interned at Amazon. Did some Google Summer of Code stuff when I was in college. Was studying computer science, and the idea was, primarily from the day one, how can we create a level playing field? How can we create a meritocratic platform? How can we provide opportunities to developers irrespective of which college they are from, irrespective of whether they have studied computer science or not? How can we help them assess themselves and get access to the companies who could be open to hiring them? So primarily that was the goal from the day one. But besides that, there were a lot of macro factors that we were fortunate enough to be aware of when I was in college. The biggest macro factor has been that the software is eating the world. Every company is going to be a tech company in the future, or it is already a tech company. No one could imagine even booking a cab or ordering your meal on your phone a decade ago. In fact, when I was in college, I still did not have a Facebook account. I did not have a WhatsApp account, right? So a lot of things happened in the last, I would say, 6-7 years. Every company is going to need developers. The number of developers itself is increasing at a very rapid pace. And in fact, I personally advise everyone to take up writing code as a profession. At least there's a huge demand for that. But going back to the college. The starting up was impulsive. Just after that, I probably was one of the only guys, to basically start up after college. But given that the macro factor was there, given that we were already motivated, I basically just started with a batchmate who was working at Google for 2 months, left his job, and I know of zero person in my life who have left a job at Google, in just 2 months. So it was a bit impulsive decision, but we just wanted to do it, and there was never a plan B. We just wanted to see how it goes.
Amazing. There was never a plan B. That's the best inspiration. There's nothing to fall on. I have to make this work. It's do or die. There's nowhere else to go, right? That's the core of entrepreneurial spirit. I feel like that keeps us going. Like there is only plan A. Now, one more thing I want to ask you, and I want the students here, the future entrepreneurs, to know, is what kind of resources you guys had that helped you, especially from the government of India, being in a society like ours. What are the resources that helped you? What worked best for you? What would you recommend they go to?
Well, I mean, I am a PhD in doing things the hard way. So I did a couple of things that were very different that most hadn't done at that time. One was I tried to start a business out of Toronto that focused on emerging markets, or India specifically. So that was one challenge. Secondly, I mean, neither the Toronto startup ecosystem or the India kind of national ecosystem had really developed in that time, in 2007 to 2010. So that was very early days, right? And then I also timed my startup, during the 2008-2009 financial crisis. So, so it was pretty hard.
So this was the time when the Western countries were having a financial crisis.
That's
a lot
right.
of people were getting kicked out of their jobs. There was a recession that hit the market. And starting up at that time was a big gamble, right?
We ill-advised. But I really wanted to do this. And I'll be honest with you, it was really tough. And I was essentially a solo founder, because I had people who came along in the journey for part of the time, but we were struggling. And one of the things I learned, you learn a lot of lessons when you're building a company. One of the things I learned is that, you have everyone who works with you for a period of time. You don't have them forever. And, you have to get as far as you can and build a momentum, or you lose people. And it was so tough, so I kept pushing forward, but we had no momentum. And I kept losing people. And so it was really lonely building a startup that way at that time. And by the way, I had started with practically, no savings, nothing. I kind of was restarting my life at this point. And it was really tough.
I'm sure. I read a case study which talked about people who started out at that time. They said that it was so tough to find money and people who are going to invest into new ideas and concepts. But what was amazing was, because of the recession, a lot of prices had dropped. So if you're starting an office, the real estate prices were down. Staff was easily available because people were getting kicked out of their jobs. So it takes, I think, a special kind of person to see an opportunity.
A stubborn person. An entrepreneur.
I like to call it motivated, like really motivated person to find an opportunity in a challenge like that. So amazing that you did that. Now I want to know from you, what resources you had?
So I definitely needed a lot of help, when I decided to start up. It was October of 2012 when, I moved to Bangalore. Literally I had like about 10,000 rupees in my bank account, a 13-inch laptop, and just moved to Bangalore with that. I was and I am today a hardcore, programmer, a hardcore engineer, and it was probably, just the passion which, just transported me from Roorkee to Bangalore. I took a train from, Delhi to basically get there. And I definitely needed a lot of help and a lot of resources when starting up. Otherwise, Hackarat would not be what it is today. first of all, for example, there were no accelerator. There were actually literally just 2 accelerator programs in the country at that time. Today there are like dozens, maybe just in Bangalore. And was very lucky that Rajesh Sawhney, who started GSF Accelerator, he just saw me and Sachin, and we had no product. We just had an idea. We showed what we could do, what we had done earlier.
Just shooting in the dark.
Yes, and he kind of accepted us in that accelerator program. Again, he facilitated, the first round of fund, which was about $100,000 that we got a few months later. So very, again, lucky and fortunate to have that. At the same time, got a lot of support, from the Angel Network in Bangalore. Like, for example, Naveen Tiwari from InMobi, Mohit Saxena from InMobi, founders of Canvera, which was a company in the photo space at that time. A lot of different founders, helped us out, provided the mentorship, asked us some very hard questions that why we were doing so, what we wanted to build, how we would monetize, because frankly, we were not thinking of how we would monetize at that point in time. It was just about building a product, putting it out in front of the developers and seeing what kind of responses we would get. At the same time, we got a good amount of support from NASSCOM, even from iSpirit, and Ravi, Gururaj, who has been with NASSCOM, he helped us with some contacts. NASSCOM, in fact, started running some hackathons on HackerEarth, and still runs hackathons on HackerEarth, which is, again, where thousands of developers participate in those. So we got a lot of support, a lot of resources, whether it was in terms of the fund, whether it was for mentorship, whether it was, for connecting, whether for getting some of the early customers. None of it would have been possible without the support that we got. And I think that would be true for every startup.
That's very true. And one of the things, I've studied entrepreneurship in United States, and we were taught was start networking and speaking to people. I was a bit of an introvert at that time, but they told me the more people you speak with, the more dynamics you understand, and the more dynamics you understand, the better teams you can lead. That led me to so many different perceptions, so many different understandings of what my customer would want or what my client would pay for a certain thing, and so on and so forth. That was going to be my next question. Tell me a little more about prototyping, because what happens is we have an idea. This idea is on paper. How do we bring it to life? What did you do that sort of helped cultivate it to life?
Well, the on paper part is great. I think the inclination is to build to perfection. And one of the things, I run an accelerator called Techstars, one of the many, but one of the few that have worked with 2,000 companies. And we try to get people out of their head as quickly as possible. One of the things we really that I believe, is you need to develop an empathy for your customer. But you're not going to develop an empathy for your customer unless you talk to enough of them, right? So you have to get out of your head. And the problem is, many of us who are entrepreneurs, I think it's almost a character trait where we're not social, funny enough. It's hard for us to socialize our ideas. It's even hard for us to articulate our ideas. So getting out of your head, talking about it, having conversations with potential customers, getting something they can test and play with, however crude it is, allows you to develop an empathy for your customer, a stronger empathy for your customer. And that's how, my favorite quote, I know it's overused these days, but the Henry Ford quote, if I'd asked my customers what they would have wanted, they would have said a faster horse. You had to really understand your customers to know that they didn't actually want a faster horse, they wanted a car, but they didn't know a car existed, right?
That is actually something I go by as well. Now, I'm sure you guys are going to get introduced to the concept of design thinking in the days to come. So what design thinking does is, let's say the problem is, I need a new sink. How about I change the question to, how can we make cleaning hands easier? Then you have a sanitizer, then you have hand wipes. The thing is, product differentiation starts when you try to think outside that box, when you break that box and you try and change the question. why can we make this easier? Why can we make this simpler? Why can we make this more accessible? Once you do that, money will follow. Tell us a little more about what you did. How was prototyping working for you? Did you take customer feedback? Did you change too much?
Yes, so very good question. Specifically in our space where a product is primarily used by developers and for developer assessment and recruiting, how we went about it. And one of the primary problems that we were solving, when we were starting up, was how do we make it easier to write code online and get an instant feedback in real time online. Back in 2012. Still the idea of running code in the cloud was very, very new. Running anything in the cloud in India was kind of, growing up, and forget running code in the cloud. The concept of that you don't have to, and all programmers and engineers would understand this, the concept that you don't have to install compilers or IDEs or code editors on your local machine, and you just log into a browser and you start writing code and you compete with, hundreds of thousands of developers all over the world. You get a feedback in real time, irrespective of the programming language that you write in. That was unheard of. So what we went about doing was rolling out, we basically focused on just two parameters. And the first was, how can we make a code editor as simple as possible, which runs and loads very fast in the browser. And the second is, the moment you write your code and hit submit, how do we get a response, overall, code evaluation response, which is as close to what you'd get on your basically local machine. And probably even faster if your local machine basically just hangs and crashes, right? How can we do it even faster on the browser? And we just focused on these two parameters, and we saw that, developers instantly loved it. Obviously, we went down so many times. I remember, waking up in the middle of the night, trying to reboot our entire cluster, reboot the entire system. So many sleepless nights, but that was the core basically experience that we wanted to build. And that actually, what the reason I'm explaining this in detail is, whatever product you build, there would be at least one or two core areas of the product where you want the experience to be really amazing, because that is what your users are using the product for, your customers are using the product for, and those operational metrics for at least those experiences have to be really amazing, and then everything else basically just falls, and everything else has to be just glued around it. Yeah.
That is a very, very amazing thing that you said, that take feedback real time. Otherwise, you can have like a 5-star product and you may realize later that nobody wants to use it. The best thing is to take feedback real time, keep changing it. That way you're on the same page as your customer and everything's going great. All right, now let's talk money, investments. How easy were they?
Okay, let me go on it. Actually, we actually had the first round of fund that we got, which was about $100,000, was pretty easy. I would say, because I would say we were lucky to get that when we just had a basic product and maybe about 40,000-50,000 users, But after that, we raised 2 rounds, actually 3 rounds. There was a pre-Series A, Series A, and then Series B. And all the rounds have been extremely hard. There won't be any, at least any investor in the country that I have not met so far. And that happens when you have a product probably, which is focused on a niche vertical, when you are trying to solve the problem a bit differently. But again, every time we have been lucky enough that even after getting 50 no's or hundreds of no's, there have been one person who has understood the business, who has understood us, who has understood what we are trying to do really well, and then put in the money. So we raised about $500,000 in 2014. Then we raised $5 million in 2016, and then we actually recently closed about $7 million. If you ask me personally, the experience has been, I would say, brutal. Meeting, everyone, not giving up, raising the money, raising the capital that we needed, not what someone was offering or not what someone we just wanted, but raising what we really, really needed, and doing the math and doing the science behind that, and then going about and then meeting everyone.
how would you value your company while taking investments? What is the thought process behind that?
Can you probably try to explain the question?
Okay, so let's assume I create a product. I don't know what it's worth. I don't know what my company is worth right now. So how do I pitch to an investor to show some value, to show some worth? How do I decide what my idea or concept is worth?
So I've written a little bit about this recently. If anyone adds me on LinkedIn, you'll find some stuff on this. But so I boil it down to signals. So when you're building a company in the early days, there's a complete absence of data on, how well you're doing at solving the problem. There's absolutely no data, right? So early stage investors don't invest on, on that basis of performance. They invest on the basis of potential. And they decipher potential based on signal. If you understand the signals that you need to be a beacon for, that you need to emit, you can go out and raise money early stage. That's going to get you as far as Series A, potentially, but not far beyond that. Because at some point, venture capital works on the basis of data, right? Late stage venture capital has performance data. So they start to make decisions differently, they use different signals. You're all sitting here, you're all going to IIT. That's a signal, right? So right off the bat, when any of you actually go out and pitch an angel investor or a VC, they're probably going to pay attention to you, right? When you have already been a founder, when you've started a company, even if that company has failed, that's another signal. If you've obviously if you've built a company and had success, that's a really great signal. But going beyond that, when you can get to really explaining what you've built without using jargon, right? Without using terms like IoT and AI and all that kind of stuff that's very easy to sprinkle in and it sounds cool and it sounds very current. In actuality, when you use those words, what you're saying to the investor is, I'm really not sure how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to use this term as a catch-all phrase. These are signals, right? Being able to explain your idea, going back to the point you just made earlier, getting the ability to actually speak to customer feedback, people you've spoken to, the anecdotes of those conversations, being qualitative about what you've heard. Those are signals, right? So what you want to do if you're going to go out and build a startup is figure out how to create the right signals. And you already have a step up because you're coming from IIT, so that helps, right? But you've got to figure out how to create the right signals. So I would encourage you to really dig deep on that. And again, the right signal, the reason they're signals is because there's usually some likelihood that when you find those signals, they're going to lead to successful outcomes, right? And that's how VC works.
That's amazing. Which brings me back to the point of data. Data is the new oil, they say. And you can now read patterns and you can make decisions that are not just coming out of thin air or a hunch of some sort, but is actually backed by some pattern of some sort. You recognize that and implement decisions. Has data helped you in terms of innovation in any way? Do your companies use data to innovate products, product options?
Yeah, all the time, like for example, so the question is basically, if you have data, how it helps you to innovate. In the early days, it's a chicken and egg problem, to be honest. You need data to take better decisions, and you want to take better decisions, but you don't have data. So in the early days, you are relying a lot on your gut, a lot on your instincts that what you should be doing, what you should not be doing. In fact, forget everything. Having an idea is just a gut feeling, right? having an idea and then wanting to start up is basically your instinct saying that, okay, you know that it can be a risky proposition, but still you want to go ahead and you want to put your life or put your money into basically executing that idea. So in the early days it is all about that, but as you get users, as you get customers, you start accumulating data. If I talk in context of specifically in context of Hacker Earth, we for example have a skill graph of all the developers, all the users on Hacker Earth. We know what are the programming languages they are good in, what are the projects they have done, what's the kind of experiences they have had, which are the companies they could be suitable for. For the companies when they are using Hacker Earth to do all these campus tests and assess developers and candidates for different roles. Now we are able to better recommend who would be the best suited for interviewing, who would be the best suited for hiring. So there are a lot of intelligence and a lot of I would say actually very core machine learning and specific stuff that we are adding into the product, but that is all based on data. Now this kind of innovation could not have happened even if we had thought of doing such such innovation back in 2012. Yeah, right. If we did not have the data, only because we were able to build a platform and then get the developers, get the community, get the customers. Now we are able to add intelligence on top of it.
All right, that's amazing. Experience brings in more experience. All right. The other question I had for you all is, when students are trying to start up or they're trying to think of an idea, they're trying to solve a problem, there are some industries which are high barrier industries. Then there are some that are low barrier industries. Is there a preference? Would you recommend, like, let me assume I know my first startup is going to be a failure. Where should I try the waters? Should I try a high barrier industry? Should I try a low barrier industry?
Go get a job. Like, seriously. If you're struggling to find an idea, don't go build a business. Go get a job. Go get some experience. Go get some depth of knowledge. The high barrier businesses you're talking about, they're high barrier because, like, fintechs as an example are high barrier businesses. A lot of medtechs are high barrier businesses because they require some domain experience, some knowledge, because they're not just, you're not just going to go and code one night and solve a major problem, for fintechs or for insurance companies. You need some experience.
Right.
So if that's what interests you, go get to know that area, go get a job, right? I think there's a lot to be said. We've made this flip where all of a sudden it's really awesome to go build a company, and that's great. I think a lot of people are losing sight of what building a company is really about. And building a company is just one way to solve a problem. You can go and join a great company and also solve a problem. In fact, I would say that's a much easier thing to do. Go get a job for a company who, if you think a company is solving a problem that means something to you, then why go start another company to solve that problem, right? But the experience you'll get by going out and working with a good team of people and solving a problem, look, very few people go right out of the bat and succeed right out of school. So, that would be my advice.
That's actually very good advice. Get a job, fail under somebody's mentorship so that they can correct you, and then you know better when you try to implement your own business. That's amazing. Okay, any questions from the crowd? Any specific questions for our amazing guiding lights over here today?
I know it has been probably a long session for you guys. I actually have one question. How many of you want to start up ever in your life? Probably a raise of hands. Yeah. Why not everyone, right? Everybody said that.
Why are you here, not at the pub then?
Everybody in all the keynotes said that starting up makes you actually makes your resume better, even if you are trying to get into a job, irrespective of whether you succeed or fail. And I strongly recommend everyone to do it, irrespective of whenever you do it, either after college or you work somewhere and then you start up, but you must do it. the amount of learning you get is something you can't even comprehend unless you're a startup.
That's amazing, amazing. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. It's a rare opportunity to have people share their knowledge, share their experience, and it's even more amazing if you learn from it and apply it. I really hope we have 10 amazing entrepreneurs coming out of here next year. Yes, you have a question?
Hello.
Hello, sir. As you said, get a job. I want to ask that I'm an engineering student, so of course I get into internships every year, like with many people here. So I was asking how to network with people, how to build your network, because when the once question was asked here that it has been 7-8 months for his startups, but he has not been able to get the proper investors. So at many stages of your startup, you might have been a problem where you don't have enough network to solve that particular problem. So I was asking if you have any advice for any, if you go to an internship or something, so how can we how to gain the network with people?
So the question is, so the issue is, it's tough to find the right network of people that are going to invest in your idea. Is that the challenge?
Sir, I'm asking that.
Or how do you build a network?
Yeah.
How do you build a network?
Yeah.
Got it. So, look, I think let's go back to what networks are, right? Do you know, in terms of engagement, one of the highest engaged networks that you can ever find is the people who went to the same post-secondary school. Did you know that? If you reach out to anyone who's an IIT Kanpur alum on LinkedIn, there's about a 1 in 4 chance that they're actually going to respond to you. Did you know that? 1 in 4. Your family is 80%, right? But your alum, that's 1 in 4. It doesn't matter when they went to school here. So it's not just your year we're talking about, right? So that's one amazing asset you have. I think that's a big asset for going to a specific school. But you can build on that. It's easier than ever to find people, online. What you need is to figure out, how to articulate and how to connect and how to feel, good about connecting. And sometimes building a connection with someone is about, sometimes putting yourself in a place of discomfort. I wasn't always a good speaker. I stammered when I was a kid. I left university. I was pretty, shy, right? For me, I had to really get out of, myself. I had to put myself out there, and that was not comfortable. But one of the things I learned was, when you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you grow, right? And that's what this is all about.
Thank you, sir.
That is very true. The more you try to socialize, if it's difficult to speak to an investor at first, try speaking to a friend. Try speaking to someone who's a stranger. Just go and be like, hey, I have an idea. When I say stranger, I mean on campus. Just go and be like, I have an idea. Can you tell me how you feel about this? Or what would you do? Would you use something like this? Do you think you'd be interested? Would you pay for it? Start with some basic questions. And if they don't feel it, okay, there'll be another audience for it. That's fine. Okay? And
Hello. Yeah, this is working. I actually want to add a couple of things to it, and this is general advice that I give today. Specifically, in colleges, and the fact that all of you are here, even till now, I want to tell this to you specifically, is the one thing that ideas are basically worth a dime, and what happens in colleges is we get too productive of the ideas that we have, right? We think that if we share, someone else is going to steal them. All of us may have seen the movie Social Network by now, and we think that probably there is someone else who is going to steal my idea. But that does not happen. That never happens. You have to go and talk about your ideas to maybe 20 of your batchmates, and maybe one of them would actually accept that idea as his or her own idea and would become your co-founder, when you are starting the company. And college is a perfect place to find a good friend to start a company with. The perfect place. There cannot be a better place than this to, basically find someone to start a company. Roti, kapda and makan, everything is sorted here, right? When you are in college. And then what you have to then worry about is basically, whatever you want to do and whom you want to do it with, right? So try to do something when you are in college. Telling a bit of personal story, when I came to college and got computer science, and that was because of whatever rank I had never touched computer before in my life. Literally, never touched computer before in my life. Started coding, started doing a bunch of stuff, and then basically, ended up starting up Hackathon, and that too with a friend, whom we became friends in college, and we mutually thought that this was a great idea, this was a good idea to basically work upon. So a lot of things can only happen when you are in your college, when you are in your dorm room. But for that, you have to share your ideas with everyone. You have to do what you really like to do, what you really love to do. You have to try to become really good at it. And then you have everything else sorted out. The only thing that you have to then worry about is how do you go about building what you want to build. You have the mess, you have the breakfast, you have the dinner, you have the lunch waiting for you. You have the, basically the place to sleep. And then you have got all the time to then basically do what you love to do. And if you do that, you may fail, but you may also succeed. But you won't know unless you have tried it out. So that's probably the final advice I would give to you.
Wonderful advice. I think so. One thing to say is, if you have any interest in entrepreneurship, learn to take risks. Learn to not fear failure. Right? If anything, success is a function of lots and lots of failure.
very true. Now, one last time, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you taking the time out.
Thank you all. Thank you, Rishita, for such a wonderful moderation. The Fireside with Founders has really brought out various facets and nuances of the startup ecosystem. We thank the panelists, Mr. Vivek Prakash and Mr. Ray Neval, for bringing out their personal experiences on table that will help us learn and understand this world better. I'm sure we'll all walk back richer with improved perspectives. Thank you, sirs.
And now I would like to call upon Saksham Gupta, overall coordinator of eCell IIT Kanpur, to present a token of appreciation to Ray Neval. Now I would like to call upon Ayush Sharma onto the stage for presenting a moment of appreciation for our moderator, Rishita. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
We would request Tanmay, overall coordinator of eCell, to kindly present a memento to Mr. Vivek Mishra.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Kya?
Close kar.
With this, we have arrived at the culmination of the inauguration ceremony of eSummit. Thank you all for your presence, and we hope to see you in large numbers participating in the coming days. Thank you all.
Thank you.
थैंक यू कौन कर रहा है यार हम लोग इतने स्टूपिड है हम लोग को ये लाइट नहीं कवर करेगी
Excuse me, everyone. Hello. चल क्यों नहीं रहा है?
Announcement, please.
Everyone who has not got the hospitality booklets, they need to first get them on the counter. Otherwise, they won't be able to attend the further sessions in the summit. Please do register. Get yourself registered there.